I stood in my kitchen that Tuesday morning, staring at the gleaming appliances I had spent 2 years saving for, and allowed myself a rare moment of pride. The espresso machine alone had cost $3,000, but every penny had been worth it. My name is Daisy. I am 27 years old, and I had worked myself to exhaustion in the biotechnology industry to afford this life. This apartment in Austin, this sanctuary of carefully chosen furniture and high-end appliances, represented everything I had built on my own. My father sat at my marble breakfast bar, sipping coffee from the machine he had just dismissed as unnecessary. He had arrived unannounced that morning, letting himself in with the spare key I now regretted giving him. His eyes wandered over my kitchen with that familiar expression of vague disapproval mixed with incomprehension. "You don't need expensive appliances since you're single," he said, shrugging as though he had just stated an obvious truth. "It's wasteful, really. When you get married, sure, but right now?" He gestured around my kitchen like it was decorated in excess. I forced a smile that didn't reach my eyes, my fingers tightening around my own coffee cup. "I bought them because I wanted them, Dad. I work hard. I deserve nice things. I'm just saying," he continued, oblivious to the tension in my voice. "Your brother is getting married next month. He and Vanessa are moving into their new house. They actually need quality appliances for entertaining, for building a family. You're just one person." There it was. The comparison I had heard my entire life. My brother Patrick, golden child, could do no wrong. At 31, he had drifted through 3 different careers, never quite finding his footing, always bailed out by our parents. Meanwhile, I had put myself through graduate school, landed a prestigious position as a research coordinator at a major biotech firm, and built a life I was proud of. None of it ever seemed to matter. "Patrick is an adult," I said carefully. "He can buy his own appliances." My father's expression hardened. "Family helps family, Daisy. You've always been so independent, so cold about these things. Your mother and I worry about you." Cold. The word struck like a slap. I was cold because I had boundaries. I was cold because I didn't hand over everything I worked for the moment someone asked. I was cold because I had learned, after years of watching my accomplishments be minimized while Patrick's failures were forgiven, that I could only rely on myself. "I need to get to the office," I said, setting down my cup. "I have a presentation at 9. He nodded, but didn't move to leave. "I'll lock up when I'm done. Your mother wanted me to measure your windows for those curtains she's making." I hesitated. Something felt off about this, about his casual presence in my space, but I was already running late. The presentation I was giving to our department heads about the new clinical trial protocols had consumed weeks of my life. I couldn't afford to be distracted. "Fine," I said, grabbing my bag. "Just make sure everything is locked when you leave." He raised his coffee cup in acknowledgement, and I walked out of my apartment, that uneasy feeling following me all the way to my car. The morning traffic through Austin was predictably terrible, giving me too much time to think. My father's words circled in my mind, mixing with older memories. The time I had graduated summa cum laude from university, and my parents had left my ceremony early to attend Patrick's amateur basketball game. The Christmas when I had paid off my student loans and announced it proudly, only to have the conversation immediately shift to Patrick's new girlfriend. The countless times I had achieved something significant, only to be met with lukewarm congratulations, followed by questions about when I would settle down, get married, give them grandchildren. I had learned to stop expecting recognition. I had learned to celebrate my victories alone, to find satisfaction in my own assessment of my worth. But it still hurt. That was the thing nobody told you about being the overlooked child. You could understand it intellectually, could even forgive it, but the hurt never quite went away. My office building rose against the Austin skyline, all glass and steel and promise. I had fought for my position here, had proven myself indispensable through sheer competence and long hours. My colleagues respected me. my boss trusted me with increasingly important projects. Here, I wasn't the cold, overly independent daughter. I was simply good at my job. The presentation went well. I fielded questions from the department heads with confidence, watching them nod as I explained the protocol modifications that would improve our trial efficiency by 30%. This was my element. This was where I belonged. Afterward, my supervisor, Judith, stopped me in the hallway. She was 50-something, sharp-eyed and brilliant, the kind of woman I aspired to become. "Excellent work in there," she said. "The board is going to love this. You're positioning yourself very well for the senior coordinator role." Pride bloomed warm in my chest. "Thank you. I've been working toward that." "I know you have," Judith said. "That's why you're going to get it. Keep doing what you're doing." I returned to my office feeling lighter than I had all morning. My father's dismissive comments seemed smaller in the face of this professional validation. Let him think my appliances were wasteful. Let him prioritize Patrick's needs over mine. I had built something here that had nothing to do with them, something they couldn't diminish or take away. I stayed late to finish documentation, losing myself in the familiar rhythm of work. It was nearly 7 p.m. when I finally packed up my things and headed home. The drive back to my apartment gave me time to decompress from the day, but also time for the morning's conversation to creep back into my thoughts. I thought about how I had saved for years to furnish my first apartment, how every piece had been carefully chosen, researched, budgeted for. While my brother coasted through life, always rewarded simply for existing, I had worked overtime, skipped vacations, brown-bagged my lunches to afford the things that made my space feel like home. The appliances had been the crown jewel of my efforts. $18,500 for a complete set, including the refrigerator, the range, the dishwasher, the espresso machine, the wine cooler, and the microwave. All top of the line, all matching in sleek stainless steel. I had researched each piece for months, reading reviews, comparing warranties, waiting for the perfect time to buy. When they had finally been installed 6 months ago, I had stood in my kitchen and felt something I rarely allowed myself to feel. Pure, uncomplicated happiness. My father's words echoed again. "You don't need expensive appliances since you're single," as though my marital status determined what I deserved, as though the money I earned held less value because I didn't have a partner to spend it on. Patrick had never saved for anything in his life. He had gone through 3 different careers, each time funded by our parents. First, it was going to be real estate, until he lost his license for failing to disclose property issues to a buyer. Then it was personal training, until the gym discovered he had been inflating his certification credentials. Now he worked in sales for a solar panel company, though from what I could tell, he spent most of his time talking about sales, rather than actually making them. Yet somehow he was getting married, buying a house, being celebrated at every turn. Vanessa seemed nice enough the few times I had met her, though she had that same expectant quality my parents had, as though the world owed her things simply for showing up. They were perfect for each other. I pulled into my parking spot and grabbed my work bag from the passenger seat. The building's elevator was slow as always, giving me time to check my phone. A text from my mother. "Dad said you have a beautiful place. So glad he could visit today. Don't forget about the engagement party this weekend." I typed back a non-committal response and pocketed my phone. The engagement party. Another event celebrating Patrick's mediocrity while I stood on the sidelines, smiling, pretending I didn't notice the differential treatment. The elevator doors opened on my floor. I walked down the familiar hallway, my heels clicking against the polished floor, and stopped in front of my door. Something felt wrong immediately. The door was locked, as it should be. But when I turned the key and pushed it open, the wrongness intensified. My apartment was too quiet, too empty. I stepped inside and my breath caught. The espresso machine was gone from the counter. In its place sat a battered old coffee maker, the kind you could buy at a discount store for $20. The beautiful stainless steel was nowhere to be seen. My heart started to pound. I moved further into the kitchen, my eyes taking in each new horror. The wine cooler was gone, replaced by a scratched-up mini-fridge that looked like it had been pulled from a college dormitory. The refrigerator, my gorgeous smart refrigerator with the touchscreen and the perfect ice maker, was gone. In its place stood an ancient white model, dented on one side, humming loudly. I yanked open the oven door with shaking hands. Not my range. This was some cheap electric model, one of the burners visibly damaged. Coming home from the office to find my $18,500 appliance set replaced with scratched-up junk made everything suddenly, painfully clear. My father hadn't come to measure windows. He had come to rob me. The room tilted. I gripped the counter, feeling bile rise in my throat. Every single appliance I had saved for, worked for, chosen so carefully, was gone, stolen from my own home by my own father, and replaced with garbage, as though I wouldn't notice, as though I didn't deserve better, as though my things were interchangeable with trash. My phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I answered, my voice coming out strangled. "What did Dad do?" "Oh, honey," she said in that bright, deflective tone she used when she knew she was in the wrong but planned to brazen through it anyway. "We were going to tell you tomorrow. Your father picked up your appliances this afternoon. Patrick needs them for his new house, and you don't really need such expensive things. You're just one person." "He stole from me," I said, each word precise and cold. "He came into my home and stole $18,000 worth of my property." "Don't be dramatic," my mother said, her tone sharpening. "We're family. We help each other. Your father left you perfectly functional replacements. You won't even notice the difference." I looked at the ancient refrigerator, at the damaged stove, at the coffee maker that probably didn't even work. "You had no right." "Patrick is starting a family," she continued, as though I hadn't spoken. "He needs quality appliances for entertaining. You can manage just fine with what you have. When you get married, we'll help you upgrade. But right now, this is what makes sense." "I'm calling the police," I said. My mother laughed, actually laughed. "And tell them what? That your father borrowed some appliances? Don't be ridiculous, Daisy. You always overreact to everything. This is exactly why you're still single. You can't see beyond yourself." I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I stood in my violated kitchen, trying to process what had happened. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a family disagreement about boundaries. This was theft, pure and simple, dressed up in the language of family obligation. My father had used his key, his access to my home, to steal from me, and my mother was defending it. The front door opened behind me. I spun around, half expecting my father to return, but it was Patrick who walked in, that familiar cocky grin on his face. "Hey, sis," he said, looking around my apartment like he owned it. "Mom said you might be upset. I wanted to come talk to you before this got blown out of proportion." "Get out," I said. He held up his hands in mock surrender. "Come on, don't be like that. I just came from our new place. The appliances look amazing. They're going to be perfect for when we host Vanessa's family. You should see how the refrigerator fits in our kitchen layout. It's like it was meant to be there." Something in his tone, the casual entitlement, the complete lack of awareness of what he had taken from me, snapped something inside. "Those appliances were mine. I saved for 2 years to buy them. You have no right to them." "Dad said you wouldn't mind," Patrick said, his expression shifting to confused innocence. "He said you told him it was fine, that you wanted to help us out." "That's a lie, and you know it." He shrugged, settling onto my couch like he planned to stay. "Look, I get that you're upset, but this is what family does. We help each other out. You make good money, you can buy new appliances whenever you want. Vanessa and I are just starting out. We need the help." "You're 31 years old," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. You have a job. You could have saved for your own appliances just like I did. It's not the same, he said. We have a mortgage, wedding expenses, all kinds of costs you don't have to worry about. You're just one person in a one-bedroom apartment. We're building a life together. There it was again. That phrase. Just one person. As though my singleness made me less deserving, less important, less real. As though the life I had built meant nothing because I had built it alone. I want my appliances back, I said. Tomorrow, or I'm calling the police. Patrick laughed, the same dismissive sound my mother had made. The police? For what? Dad has a key. You gave it to him. He came over. We moved some appliances around. There's no crime there. And good luck explaining to a judge why you're trying to get your own brother arrested for accepting a gift from your father. It wasn't Dad's gift to give. Legally? Patrick leaned back, crossing his arms. I'm not so sure about that. You might want to think carefully before you make this a big thing. Mom and Dad have done a lot for you over the years. It would be a shame to ruin your relationship with the whole family over some appliances. The threat was barely veiled. Fall in line or be cut off. Accept the theft or lose what little family connection remained. It was the same pattern that had played out my entire life, just escalated to a criminal level. Get out of my apartment, I said again. Fine, he said, standing. But think about what I said. Is this really the hill you want to die on? Is it worth destroying the family over a refrigerator? He left, and I locked the door behind him, then wedged a chair under the handle for good measure. I trusted nothing about my family anymore. They had proven they would come into my home, take what they wanted, and feel entitled to do so. I called my best friend Victoria, who worked in the legal department of a pharmaceutical company. She answered on the second ring. I need a lawyer, I said without preamble. A really good one. Someone who handles theft and family law. What happened? She asked, concern flooding her voice. I told her everything, from my father's morning visit to Patrick's threats. By the time I finished, she was silent for a long moment. This is bad, she finally said. But it's also straightforward. What they did is absolutely illegal. The fact that your father had a key doesn't give him the right to take your property, and the replacement with cheaper items doesn't mitigate the theft. If anything, it shows intent. Patrick said I couldn't prove anything. Patrick is an idiot, Victoria said bluntly. Do you have receipts for the appliances? All of them, digital and paper. Photos of the original appliances in your apartment? I thought about the housewarming party I had thrown 6 months ago, how I had been so proud to show off my kitchen. Dozens. I posted some on social media too. Perfect. And witnesses who can testify that your father took them without permission. I don't know if anyone saw him, but the building has security cameras in the hallways and elevator. Even better, Victoria said. I'm texting you the name of my friend Gregory. He's a litigator, handles property disputes and family conflicts. He's expensive, but he's worth every penny. Tell him I sent you. He owes me a favor, so he'll at least do a consultation for free. Thank you, I said, feeling the first small spark of hope since I had walked into my ransacked kitchen. Daisy, Victoria said, her voice gentle now. Are you sure you want to do this? Your family is going to fight back. It's going to get ugly. I looked around my apartment, at the cheap replacements for my beautiful appliances, at the violation of my space and my trust. I thought about my father's dismissiveness, my mother's laughter, Patrick's threats. I thought about 27 years of being overlooked, dismissed, treated as lesser. I'm sure, I said. I'm done letting them treat me like this. Then let's make them pay, Victoria said. I hung up and immediately emailed Gregory, laying out the situation in clear, unemotional terms. Then I went through my apartment, photographing every cheap replacement, documenting every scratch and dent. I pulled up my social media and downloaded every photo I had ever posted of my kitchen. I gathered receipts, warranty information, installation records. If my family wanted war, they would get it. But it would be a war fought on my terms, with lawyers and evidence and the full weight of the law behind me. They had made a terrible mistake. They had underestimated me one last time. The next morning, I woke at 5 a.m. despite having barely slept. Every time I had closed my eyes, I saw my father's casual shrug, heard my mother's dismissive laugh, replayed Patrick's threats. The anger had settled into something colder overnight, something more focused and dangerous. I made coffee in the terrible discount machine that had replaced my espresso maker. It tasted like burned water, which somehow made everything worse. I sat at my breakfast bar, the same spot my father had occupied yesterday morning, and waited for my phone to ring. Gregory called at 7:30 a.m., his voice crisp and professional. Victoria filled me in on the basics. I've reviewed the information you sent. This is absolutely actionable. Can you come to my office at 10? I'll be there, I said. When I confronted my parents at their house an hour later, they were eating breakfast in their sunny kitchen, completely unconcerned. My mother looked up from her grapefruit with mild surprise. Daisy, what are you doing here so early? Don't you have work? I called in sick, I said. We need to talk about what Dad did yesterday. My father set down his newspaper. If you're here to make a scene about the appliances, you can save your breath. What's done is done. Patrick needed them more than you did. You stole from me, I said, keeping my voice level. You came into my home with a key I gave you in trust, and you stole $18,500 worth of my property. That's a felony. My mother's expression hardened. Don't be so dramatic. We gave you replacements. You're not without appliances. You gave me junk worth maybe $500 total, and most of it doesn't even work properly. The oven's burner is broken. The refrigerator leaks. The dishwasher won't close right. So we'll get them fixed, my father said irritably. You're making this into a much bigger deal than it needs to be. Patrick needed quality appliances for his new house. He's starting a family. You're just one person who apparently doesn't appreciate family values. There was that phrase again. Just one person. As though my accomplishments, my career, my carefully built life counted for nothing because I didn't have a husband and children. As though I was somehow less than, incomplete, undeserving of the things I had earned. I want my appliances back, I said clearly. Today, or I'm pursuing this legally. They both laughed. Actually laughed at me. With what lawyer? My father said. Do you know how expensive it is to sue someone? By the time you pay legal fees, you could have bought new appliances twice over. You're not thinking straight. Patrick needs them more, my mother repeated, as though this were a universal truth that should end all discussion. He's getting married. He's buying a house. He's building something real. You need to support your brother instead of being selfish about some kitchen equipment. The words hit like physical blows, each one a reminder of every time my achievements had been minimized, my feelings dismissed, my worth questioned. I had graduated at the top of my class. I had built a successful career in a demanding field. I had saved and planned and worked for everything I had, and none of it mattered to them. It would never matter to them. This conversation is over, I said. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. My father stood, his face reddening. You threaten me with lawyers? In my own house? After everything your mother and I have done for you? We put you through school. We supported you. We gave you every opportunity. And this is how you repay us? By attacking your own brother over some appliances? You didn't put me through school, I said, my voice shaking now with barely controlled rage. I had scholarships and student loans that I paid off myself. You came to my graduation for 20 minutes before leaving for Patrick's basketball game. You've supported Patrick his entire life while I got nothing but criticism for being too independent, too cold, too selfish. "That's not true," my mother said, but her voice wavered. "It's completely true," I said, "and I'm done pretending otherwise. I'm done being the overlooked child. I'm done watching you give Patrick everything while telling me I don't deserve basic respect. You stole from me. You violated my home, and you're going to face consequences for it." I left before they could respond, my hands shaking as I drove away from the house I had grown up in. The house where I had learned that love was conditional, that approval had to be earned and re-earned and was never quite enough, where Patrick was celebrated for mediocrity while I was criticized for excellence. Gregory's office was in a sleek downtown building, all glass and modern furniture. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and an air of barely contained intensity. He listened to my story without interrupting, taking notes occasionally. "This is cut and dried," he said when I finished. "Your father committed theft. The fact that he had a key is irrelevant. The property was yours, purchased with your money, documented with receipts. He had no legal right to take it. The replacement with inferior goods doesn't mitigate the crime. If anything, it demonstrates consciousness of guilt." "My brother said I couldn't prove anything," I said. Gregory smiled thinly. "Your brother is wrong. We have your receipts, your photographs, your social media posts showing the appliances in your apartment. We'll subpoena your building's security footage showing your father leaving with the items. We'll document the current state of the replacement appliances. This is an easy case to prove." "What happens next?" "We file a police report for theft. We file a civil suit for the value of the property plus damages. We get a restraining order preventing your father from entering your property. And we make it very, very expensive for them to have done this to you." Hope bloomed in my chest, warm and bright. "How long will this take?" "Depends on whether they fight it or settle. My guess. Once they realize we're serious, they'll try to settle quickly. People who steal from family members usually rely on their victims being too intimidated or guilty to pursue legal action. When you call their bluff, they tend to fold fast." "I want to pursue criminal charges," I said, "not just civil." Gregory studied me for a moment. "That's going to make this harder on you. Criminal charges mean involving the police, the district attorney. It means your father could face jail time. Are you prepared for how your family will react to that?" I thought about my mother's laugh, my father's shrug, Patrick's threats. I thought about 27 years of being treated as less than, of having my accomplishments ignored and my needs dismissed. I thought about coming home to find my beautiful kitchen ransacked, replaced with junk, violated. "Yes," I said. "I'm prepared." Gregory nodded slowly. "Then we'll pursue both criminal and civil. I'll draft the police report for you to file today. I'll also prepare a demand letter to your father requiring the return of the appliances within 48 hours or we escalate. Are you ready for this to get ugly?" "It's already ugly," I said. The police report was filed by noon. The officer who took my statement was sympathetic but clearly uncomfortable with the family aspect. "You understand this could result in criminal charges against your father?" she asked multiple times, as though I might change my mind. "I understand," I said each time. The demand letter was delivered by courier at 2 p.m. Gregory had drafted it to be maximally intimidating. Detailed descriptions of the theft, estimated values, citations of relevant criminal statutes, and a clear timeline for compliance. Return the appliances within 48 hours, or face immediate legal action on both criminal and civil fronts. My phone started ringing at 2:15. My mother first, then my father, then my mother again. I didn't answer. Then Patrick called 3 times in a row. I sent every call to voicemail. Finally, a text from Patrick. "You're really doing this? Over appliances? You're going to destroy this family over a refrigerator?" I typed back, "You destroyed this family when you stole from me. Return my property." His response was immediate. "They were gifts from Dad. He can give gifts to whoever he wants. They were my property that he stole. 48 hours. I silenced my phone and went back to work. Or tried to. Focusing on clinical trial protocols while my family imploded was nearly impossible, but I forced myself to concentrate. This job, this career, was mine. They couldn't take it from me. They couldn't diminish it. No matter what happened with my family, I still had this. Judith stopped by my office at 4. You okay? You seem distracted. I debated lying, then decided against it. Family issues. Nothing that will affect my work. Do you need some time off? No, I said. Work is the only thing keeping me sane right now. She studied me with those sharp eyes. I've been where you are. Family can be the most toxic thing in your life if you let them. Whatever you're dealing with, don't let them make you doubt yourself. Thank you, I said, meaning it. That evening, I stayed late again. Partly to finish work, and partly to avoid going home to my violated apartment. When I finally did return, I checked the locks 3 times and wedged the chair under the door handle again. Trust, once broken, was nearly impossible to rebuild. My phone had 17 voicemails. I listened to them in chronological order, each one more revealing than the last. My mother, first message. Daisy, this is ridiculous. Call me immediately. We need to talk about this lawyer nonsense. My father, second message. You're making a terrible mistake. Family doesn't sue family. Call this off before you do permanent damage. Patrick, third message. Sis, come on. Let's talk about this like adults. There's no need to involve lawyers. Then the messages got nastier. My mother, sixth message. How dare you file a police report against your own father? What is wrong with you? Are you trying to send him to jail? Over appliances? My father, eighth message. You're dead to me if you don't drop this immediately. I will not have my own daughter treating me like a criminal. Patrick, 11th message. You know what? Fine. Keep the cheap appliances. See if I care. But don't come crying to me when you're old and alone and wondering why your family wants nothing to do with you. The later messages were my mother crying, begging me to reconsider, insisting that I was tearing the family apart, that this would kill my father, that I was being selfish and cruel and heartless, cold, selfish, heartless. The same accusations I had heard my entire life, weaponized now to make me back down, to make me accept being stolen from, to make me grateful for the violation of my home and trust. I deleted all the voicemails without responding. The next day at work, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, From Vanessa, Patrick's fiancée. I opened it warily. Dear Daisy, I hope you'll forgive me for reaching out like this. Patrick doesn't know I'm writing to you. I wanted to say that I understand why you're upset about the appliances. If someone took my things without asking, I would be upset too. But I also wanted you to know that we didn't know they were taken without your permission. Your father told us you had agreed to gift them to us as a wedding present. We never would have accepted them if we had known the truth. Patrick is angry right now, and your parents are scared. But I think if everyone could just talk calmly, we could resolve this. I've seen your apartment on social media. It's beautiful. You clearly worked hard for everything you have. I just hope we can find a way to fix this without destroying the family. Please call me if you want to talk. Vanessa. I read the email 3 times, searching for manipulation or hidden agenda. But it seemed genuine. Vanessa genuinely hadn't known that my father had stolen from me. The question was whether Patrick had known, or if he had believed the same lie. I forwarded the email to Gregory with a note. Fiancé claims they were told the appliances were my gift to them. Thoughts? His response came within minutes. Doesn't matter. Your father had no authority to gift your property regardless of what he told them. But this gives us leverage. If they truly believed they were gifts, they'll have no reason to fight returning them. Stay strong. That evening, I came home to find a package outside my door. No return address. I brought it inside carefully, half expecting something terrible. Inside was a photo album. My baby book, actually, one my mother had kept. A note was tucked into the first page in her handwriting. So you remember that you were loved once. The passive aggression was stunning, as though I was the one who had forgotten about love, as though I had violated trust, stolen property, laughed at someone's pain. I flipped through the album anyway, looking at photos of myself as a child. There I was at 5, gap-toothed and grinning. There at 10, holding a science fair trophy. There at 16, in my graduation gown. My mother had documented it all, had kept these memories, had presumably loved me once. What had changed? When had I become the cold, selfish daughter who didn't deserve respect? Or had I always been seen that way, my accomplishments recorded, but never truly valued? I closed the album and set it aside. Nostalgia was a trap. Whatever love had existed in the past didn't excuse theft in the present. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Daisy? Patrick's voice, but different, uncertain. Can we talk? Just you and me? About what? About everything. Please, just give me 10 minutes. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Patrick arrived 20 minutes later, looking worse than I had ever seen him. His usual cocky confidence was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like shame. Thank you for seeing me, he said, standing awkwardly in my doorway. I didn't invite him in. You have 10 minutes. Vanessa told me she emailed you, he began. She wasn't supposed to, but I'm glad she did. Daisy, I swear to you, I didn't know Dad took the appliances without your permission. He told me you had agreed to gift them to us for our wedding. He said you wanted to help us out. I studied his face, looking for the lie. And you believed him? Why wouldn't I? Patrick said, spreading his hands. Dad said you two had talked about it. He said you were happy to do it. I had no reason to think he was lying. Even though I had never mentioned anything about it to you directly, even though I had just bought those appliances 6 months ago and posted about how proud I was to afford them? He flinched. I didn't think about it that deeply. Dad said it was settled. I trusted him. And when I told you they were stolen, when I was clearly upset, you threatened me instead of questioning whether Dad had told you the truth. I know, he said quietly. I was defensive. I didn't want to believe that Dad would do something like that. It was easier to think you were overreacting than to accept that he had lied to both of us. Both of us? I said skeptically. He didn't lie to you, Patrick. He used you. He took my property and gave it to you so he could claim it was a gift. You were his shield. Patrick's face crumpled. I know that now. Vanessa made me see it. She said no parent who actually respects their child would put them in that position. She said Dad made me complicit in stealing from you. She's right. The appliances are still in boxes in our garage, Patrick said. We never installed them. Vanessa wouldn't let me. She said something felt wrong about the whole thing. I thought she was being paranoid, but she was right. Hope flickered in my chest, small, but real. You still have them? Uninstalled? All of them, he confirmed. We can bring them back tomorrow. Today if you want. Vanessa's been packing them back up since she sent you that email. I wanted to feel relief, but caution held me back. What changed? Yesterday you were threatening me. Today you're offering to return them? Patrick looked down at his feet. Yesterday I listened to my lawyer friend Kevin. He said you'd never be able to prove anything, that family disputes don't hold up in court, that you were just being dramatic. But then Vanessa made me actually read your demand letter. She made me look at the criminal statutes you cited. And she said if I didn't make this right, she was calling off the wedding. She what? She said she wouldn't marry someone who would steal from his own sister and then threaten her for trying to get her property back. Patrick said, his voice breaking. She said she had seen who I really was and how I treated you, and she didn't like it. She said I could either fix this or lose her. I had never met Vanessa more than a handful of times, but in that moment, I loved her fiercely. She's right, I said. You should fix this. I want to, Patrick said. But Daisy, there's something else you need to know. Something I overheard that made me realize how bad this really is. My stomach tightened. What? I went to Mom and Dad's house this morning to confront them about lying to me. They didn't know I was there. I let myself in with my key and I heard them on the phone in the kitchen. They were talking to Kevin, the lawyer friend I mentioned. They were laughing. The world tilted slightly. Laughing? Dad said, I can't believe she actually fell for it. And Mom said something about how you always were too trusting, too naive. Then they talked about how even if you sued, it would take years and cost more than the appliances were worth. They were treating the whole thing like a joke, like stealing from you was funny. Then I overheard my brother laughing on speakerphone about how he couldn't believe I fell for it, and something inside me hardened. The betrayal I had already felt crystallized into something diamond-hard and unbreakable. They had laughed. My own parents had laughed about violating my trust, about stealing from me, about manipulating the situation. They set this whole thing up, I said slowly, pieces clicking into place. The morning visit to measure windows, staying in my apartment all day. It was planned. Patrick nodded miserably. I think so. And I think they counted on you backing down because you always back down. Because you're the responsible one, the one who doesn't make waves, the one who values family peace over your own feelings. He was right. That was exactly what they had counted on. My entire life, I had swallowed my hurt, accepted being overlooked, made myself small to avoid conflict. They had stolen from me assuming I would do the same thing again. But something had changed. Maybe it was finally having something concrete to fight for, instead of abstract respect or recognition. Maybe it was the sheer audacity of the theft. Maybe it was just that I had reached my limit after 27 years of being treated as lesser. Whatever it was, I felt it solidify inside me, a core of steel I hadn't known I possessed. I'm not backing down, I said. Even if you return the appliances, I'm pursuing the criminal charges against Dad. He needs to face consequences. Patrick went pale. Daisy, if you do that, he could go to jail. He committed a crime, I said flatly. A premeditated crime. He planned this, executed it, lied about it, and laughed about it. Why shouldn't he face the consequences? Because he's our father, Patrick said desperately. Because once you do this, there's no going back. The family will never forgive you. The family, I repeated. You mean Mom and Dad? The people who stole from me and laughed about it? I don't need their forgiveness, Patrick. I need my dignity back. He was quiet for a long moment. I understand, he finally said. I don't agree, but I understand. Vanessa and I will bring your appliances back tomorrow morning. All of them in their original condition. We'll help you install them if you want. I want a written statement from both of you, I said. Confirming that Dad told you the appliances were a gift from me and that you had no knowledge they were taken without my permission. I want it notarized. Done, Patrick said. Anything else? Yes, I said. I want you to think about why you were so quick to believe I was in the wrong. Why your first instinct was to threaten me instead of questioning Dad's story. I want you to think about how you've treated me our entire lives, and whether you actually want to be better or if you're just scared of losing Vanessa. He flinched like I had hit him. That's fair. After he left, I called Gregory and updated him. He was pleased about the appliances being returned, but cautious about the rest. "The criminal charges are still viable," he said. "The fact that they're returning the property doesn't erase the crime, but it will be harder to prosecute if you have your items back." "I don't care," I said. "I want him to face what he did." "Then we proceed," Gregory said. "But Daisy, prepare yourself. This is about to get much worse before it gets better." Patrick and Vanessa arrived at 7 a.m. the next morning with a moving truck. I watched from my window as they unloaded box after box, each one containing a piece of my stolen property. Vanessa looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. Patrick looked worse. I let them in when they knocked. Vanessa spoke first, her voice gentle. "I'm so sorry this happened to you. If I had known, I would have made Patrick return them immediately." "I believe you," I said. And I did. They spent 4 hours reinstalling every appliance exactly where it had been. The espresso machine back on the counter, the wine cooler in its designated spot, the refrigerator, that beautiful smart refrigerator, humming quietly in the corner, the range with its pristine burners, the dishwasher that closed smoothly and properly. I watched them work, feeling something unknot in my chest. My space was being restored. The violation was being undone, piece by piece. When they finished, Patrick handed me an envelope. "The notarized statement you wanted. We both signed it." I opened it and read carefully. It was exactly what I had asked for. A clear statement that they had been told the appliances were my gift, that they had no knowledge of the theft, that they were returning the property in its original condition. "Thank you," I said. Vanessa touched my arm gently. "I hope someday we can have a real relationship. Sister to sister. I'd like that." "I'd like that too," I said, surprising myself by meaning it. After they left, I made coffee in my espresso machine. Real coffee, perfect and rich, and exactly the way I liked it. I stood in my restored kitchen and felt something like peace. Then my phone rang. My mother. I answered. "Yes?" "Patrick told me he returned the appliances," she said, her voice tight. "I hope you're satisfied. You've gotten what you wanted. Now drop the charges against your father." "No," I said simply. "What do you mean, no? You have your precious appliances back. There's no reason to pursue this further." "He committed a crime," I said. "Returning the stolen property doesn't change that. He needs to face consequences." "You're going to send your father to jail over a misunderstanding?" Her voice rose to a near shriek. "It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was premeditated theft. He planned it. He executed it. He lied about it. And he laughed about it afterward. I know because Patrick heard you." Silence. Then, in a cold voice I had never heard from her before, "Patrick had no right to tell you about a private conversation. Patrick had every right to tell me that you were mocking me for being naive enough to trust my own father," I shot back. "You know what the worst part is? Not the theft itself. It's that you thought it was funny. You thought stealing from me was amusing." "We were just blowing off steam," my mother said defensively. "You were threatening us with lawyers. We were upset." "I was threatening you with lawyers because you stole from me," I said, each word precise and hard. And instead of apologizing, instead of showing even a shred of remorse, you laughed. You called me naive. You planned to just wait me out because you thought I would back down like I always do. "Daisy, please," my mother said, and now she was crying. "Please don't do this. Your father made a mistake. He knows that now. But criminal charges, that will destroy him. It will destroy this family. You destroyed this family when you chose to treat me like I don't matter," I said. "When you chose Patrick over me again and again. When you stole from me and expected me to just accept it." "We love you," she sobbed. We've always loved you." "No," I said quietly. "You loved the version of me that didn't make waves, the version that accepted being overlooked, the version that worked hard and achieved things you could brag about but never actually valued. You loved me as long as I stayed in my place. But I'm not that person anymore." I hung up and immediately called Gregory. "They're panicking. My mother just called begging me to drop the charges." "Good," he said with grim satisfaction. "Let them panic. The district attorney's office called this morning. They're moving forward with the case. Your father will be formally charged within the week." "What does that mean?" "It means he'll be arrested, arraigned, and offered a plea deal, or go to trial. Given that he returned the property, he'll probably be offered probation and restitution. But it will go on his permanent record. He'll have a criminal conviction." The weight of that settled over me. My father would have a criminal record, because of me, because I had refused to back down. "Is that wrong?" I asked quietly. "To want him to face this? Is it wrong to want someone who committed a crime to face legal consequences for that crime?" Gregory said. "No, Daisy. That's not wrong. That's how society functions. The fact that he's your father doesn't give him the right to steal from you, and the fact that you're his daughter doesn't obligate you to protect him from his own choices." I quietly called my lawyer, even as my family kept insisting I should just move on and be supportive. But I was done being supportive of people who showed me no support. I was done moving on from things that deserved consequences. I was done being the bigger person while they became smaller and smaller in their petty cruelty. The formal charges were filed on a Wednesday. I know because that was the day my extended family started calling. Aunts and uncles I barely spoke to, cousins I hadn't seen in years, all of them with the same message. How could I do this to my father? How could I be so cruel? Didn't I understand what this would do to him? Not one of them asked what he had done to me. I stopped answering the phone. I blocked numbers. I made my social media private after my aunt posted a long, vicious screed about ungrateful children who destroy their families over material possessions. The comments section filled with relatives I hadn't thought about in decades, all agreeing that I was selfish, cruel, heartless. There was that word again. Heartless. Victoria came over that night with wine and takeout. "How are you holding up?" "I'm being disowned by people I barely knew existed," I said, scrolling through the blocked numbers on my phone. "Apparently I'm the worst daughter in history." "You're the daughter who refused to be stolen from," Victoria corrected. "That's different." "Is it though?" I asked, genuine uncertainty creeping in. "Everyone seems to think I've gone too far, that I should have just accepted the apology and moved on." "What apology?" Victoria asked sharply. "Have your parents actually apologized?" I thought about it. My mother had cried and begged, but she had never said the words, "I'm sorry." My father had sent increasingly angry messages about how I was destroying the family, but none of them had included an apology. Patrick had apologized, but only after Vanessa forced him to see the truth. "No," I said slowly. "They haven't." "Then what exactly are you supposed to accept? They stole from you, mocked you for trusting them, and are now playing the victim because you dared to hold them accountable. That's not something you forgive and move on from. That's something that requires actual remorse and change." She was right. I knew she was right, but the weight of family disapproval was heavier than I had anticipated. I had expected my parents to fight back. I hadn't expected the entire extended family to rally around them, to treat me like the villain in this story. "What if I'm wrong?" I asked quietly. "What if I am being cruel?" Victoria set down her wine and took my hands. "Listen to me. You are not wrong. You are not cruel. You are holding someone accountable for a crime they committed against you. The fact that they're your father doesn't change the fundamental reality that what he did was wrong. And the fact that your family is attacking you, instead of supporting you, tells you everything you need to know about their values." I squeezed her hands, grateful for her presence. "Thank you." Always, she said. Now eat some Chinese food and tell me about work. I want to hear about literally anything other than your terrible family. Work had become my refuge. The clinical trial was progressing well, and Judith had formally recommended me for the senior coordinator position. In my professional life, I was valued, respected, trusted. It was such a stark contrast to my family dynamics that sometimes I felt like I was living two completely different lives. The arraignment happened on a Monday morning. Gregory had suggested I attend, so I sat in the back of the courtroom and watched my father stand before a judge. He looked smaller than I remembered, older. His lawyer argued for dismissal based on the return of the property, but the prosecutor pushed back hard. The defendant used his access to his daughter's home to commit premeditated theft, she said, her voice ringing through the courtroom. He took $18,500 worth of property, replaced it with damaged items worth a fraction of that value, and attempted to cover up the theft by claiming it was a gift. This was not a family dispute. This was a crime. The judge agreed. My father was formally charged with felony theft. Bail was set at $10,000. He would face trial unless he accepted a plea deal. I watched him sign the paperwork, watched my mother cry in the front row, watched him avoid looking in my direction, even though he must have known I was there. Their confidence cracked the moment legal notices started arriving, and suddenly, the bold entitlement they relied on began to crumble. When my father's lawyer tried to argue that this was a family matter that should be settled privately, the judge shut him down immediately. The victim has the right to pursue criminal charges regardless of her relationship to the defendant. The court will not dismiss valid charges simply because they make the defendant's family uncomfortable. I left the courthouse feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks: validation. A neutral third party, someone with no stake in my family dynamics, had looked at the situation and agreed that what happened to me was wrong, that I wasn't overreacting, that I deserved justice. My phone buzzed. A text from Patrick. I was there. I saw. I'm sorry, Daisy, for everything. I typed back. Thank you. Another text, this one from Vanessa. We're here if you need us. You're not alone. I wasn't alone. I had Victoria. I had Gregory. I had my career. I had my restored apartment with my beautiful appliances. I had people who valued me, who supported me, who didn't demand I make myself smaller to accommodate their comfort. And I had something else. Self-respect. The knowledge that I was worth fighting for, worth standing up for, worth protecting. The plea deal came 2 weeks later. My father would plead guilty to misdemeanor theft, serve 1 year of probation, pay full restitution of $18,500 plus my legal fees, and complete 100 hours of community service. It would go on his permanent record. Gregory called to tell me. He took it. He'll be formally sentenced next month, but it's done. You won. I won. The words should have felt triumphant, but mostly I just felt tired. The sentencing hearing was brief. My father stood before the judge, his lawyer beside him, and accepted his punishment. The judge was not gentle. Mr. James, you violated your daughter's trust in the worst possible way, she said, her voice stern. You used your access to her home to steal valuable property, then attempted to justify that theft by claiming family obligation. This court finds your actions reprehensible. The sentence reflects not just the monetary value of what you took, but the breach of trust that accompanied it. My father nodded, his face pale. My mother sobbed in the front row. I sat in the back, watching it unfold with a strange sense of detachment. When it was over, when my father had been formally sentenced and the courtroom began to clear, he finally looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since this whole thing began. His expression was complex: shame, anger, hurt, defeat. My dad panicked when he realized the consequences were real, especially as my brother's smugness vanished the second he learned he was implicated. The reality of a criminal record, of having to explain to friends and colleagues why he was doing community service, of seeing the judgment in people's eyes, had finally penetrated his certainty that he had done nothing wrong. "Daisy," he said, his voice hoarse. I stood up and walked past him without responding. There was nothing left to say. Outside the courthouse, Vanessa was waiting. She had attended the hearing with Patrick, who looked shaken. "Are you okay?" she asked me. "I think so," I said. "Are you?" She nodded. "Patrick and I have been in therapy, working through a lot of things about his family dynamics and his role in them. It's been hard, but good." "I'm glad," I said, meaning it. Patrick approached cautiously. "Daisy, I know I don't have the right to ask for your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm working on being better, on understanding how I contributed to the way you were treated. Vanessa is helping me see things I couldn't see before." "That's good, Patrick," I said. "I hope you mean it." "I do," he said. "And I hope someday, maybe, we can have a real relationship. But I understand if you don't want that." I studied him, this brother I had grown up with, competed with, resented, and ultimately been betrayed by. He looked different now. Less cocky, more uncertain, maybe a little more real. "Maybe someday," I said. "But not now. I need time." He nodded, accepting that. "I understand." As the situation resolved in my favor and the boundaries finally stuck, I walked away from all of them knowing I would never look back. Not in anger, not in regret, but in the simple knowledge that some chapters needed to close completely before new ones could begin. The restitution check arrived a month later. $18,500 plus $12,000 in legal fees. I deposited it and immediately donated the $18,000 to a women's legal defense fund. I didn't need the money. What I had needed was the principle, the acknowledgement, the boundary. At work, I was promoted to senior coordinator. Judith took me out to celebrate at a small restaurant downtown, just the two of us. "I'm proud of you," she said, raising her glass of water. "Not just for the promotion, but for everything. I know this year has been difficult." "It has," I admitted. "But I think I'm better for it." "You are," she said. "You set boundaries. You stood up for yourself. You didn't let people who claim to love you treat you as lesser. Those are skills that will serve you well, both personally and professionally." We clinked glasses, and I felt for the first time in months, genuinely happy. Not the bitter satisfaction of revenge, but the quiet contentment of knowing my worth and demanding others recognize it too. My parents never apologized. The extended family eventually stopped calling, stopped posting about me on social media, stopped trying to make me the villain. They simply wrote me off as the daughter who destroyed the family, the cold one who chose material possessions over love. Let them think that. I knew the truth. I knew that I had chosen self-respect over abuse, boundaries over manipulation, justice over false peace. I knew that the appliances had never been the real issue. They had been the concrete, undeniable proof of something I had always known but never been able to name. That my family saw me as less than, as someone whose needs and feelings didn't matter as much as maintaining their comfortable delusions. Patrick and Vanessa stayed in touch. Small texts at first, then occasional coffee meetups. They were genuinely trying to change, to build a relationship with me based on respect rather than obligation. I appreciated the effort, even if I wasn't ready to fully trust it yet. Victoria remained my rock, my chosen family, the sister I had never had. She celebrated my victories and supported me through the difficult moments, never once suggesting I should have handled things differently. 6 months after the sentencing, my father attempted to reach out. A letter arrived, handwritten, full of explanations and justifications, and carefully worded non-apologies. He was sorry I had been hurt. He wished things had gone differently. He hoped someday I would understand that he had only been trying to help Patrick. I read it once. then shredded it. Understanding was not the same as acceptance, and his perspective was not my responsibility to validate. My life continued, better than before. I traveled. I pursued hobbies. I invested in friendships with people who actually valued me. My career flourished. My apartment remained my sanctuary. My beautiful appliances a daily reminder that I was worth fighting for. In the months that followed, my father's conviction became local knowledge in his small social circle. The community service hours he completed at a food bank meant facing questions from volunteers and staff who had heard about his case. His longtime friends from the golf club grew distant, their invitations drying up once word spread about why he had a criminal record. The shame he had tried to avoid by stealing quietly had multiplied 100-fold through the legal process. My mother, who had laughed about my naivety, found herself increasingly isolated as other mothers in her social groups quietly questioned her judgment. The narrative they had tried to control, the ungrateful daughter destroying her family, crumbled as people learned the facts: premeditated theft, returned property, criminal conviction. Their reputation, which they had valued above my well-being, lay in ruins of their own making. As for me, I built a life defined not by what had been taken from me, but by what I had reclaimed: my dignity, my voice, my absolute refusal to accept less than I deserved. Sometimes late at night I would stand in my kitchen, making perfect espresso in the machine I had saved for, and think about the daughter I used to be, the one who made herself small, who swallowed hurt, who prioritized family peace over her own worth. She was gone now, replaced by someone harder, wiser, and infinitely more free. I never regretted the path I chose, never doubted that justice had been the right response to betrayal, and I carried forward the knowledge that revenge, when it is really the enforcement of boundaries long violated, can taste exactly like the freedom it is.